This is Orange Nation Overtime with Steve Infanti and Paulie Sibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime, everyone. Alongside Paulie Sibilia, I'm Steve Infanti. We've made it to the middle of the week. It is a Wednesday here on the show. We had a couple of guests on our Orange Nation radio show this afternoon. We had Thad Brown on, sports director, WROC in Rochester, to talk Sabres, to talk Bills. We also had James Colgan on from golf.com as we get set for the PGA Championship, which tees off tomorrow. We begin with the hockey, Paulie, and you know the Sabres went into this game last night down 2-1 on the road in Montreal. You figure if you go down 3-1, it's probably all she wrote. Absolutely needed to win that game. They're down 2-1 in the second period. I don't know if you saw the game or not, but Tage Thompson scored a power play goal for the Sabres. It was a lucky bounce. He basically threw it in off the boards. It banked off the boards, it banked off the goalie's skate and went in and tied the game at 2, and it completely changed the entire momentum of the game and maybe changed the entire complexion of the series because then the Sabres got one in the third. They win it 3-2. Now it's all even going back to Buffalo.
Yeah, they gave up 2 early goals in the first period and then one each period after that. So, yeah, it'd be fun if the Sabres could go on a run here and pull this off. Buffalo fans are
starving for a championship.
Starving for anything, really.
The city has not won a major championship since the AFL-NFL merger. So, you know, the modern football with the Super Bowl, they've come close, obviously, 4 times. They've come close with a Stanley Cup before, but the city has never celebrated a championship in a major
I know that feeling, my friend.
Since the AFL-NFL merger.
My favorite city has never ever won a championship.
Yeah. So is this the year? I don't know. I don't think the Sabres are winning the Stanley Cup this year. Hurricanes look awfully good. Avalanche look awfully good. But it would be nice if they could get by this series and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and just stay alive as long as they can. And we talk about the Bills a lot on this show, whether or not this is the year. I certainly hope this is the year. We started Thad Brown off by asking him, first and foremost, about the changes that Lindy Ruff made going into that critical Game 4 last night, starting with a change in goal.
I don't think the changes were the reason they won the game. I think that they mostly worked out. Now, Luke Shen played as little as possible. They really could have skated me or you in that game, and it would have worked out about the same way. But Kostelenius was fantastic. Had the 2 2-on-1s late that nearly salted the game away. Look, the guy in Rochester, when the Sabres traded away Isak Rosén at the trade deadline to pick up Logan Stanley and Shen from Winnipeg, Rosén was the star for the Amerks. He was like Batman, and Hellenius was Robin. When Rosén went away talking about the Amerks, the story was, well, look, Hellenius has got to be Batman now. And he lived up every bit of that. He was scoring big goals. They had a game, last game of the year, they had to get a point to make the playoff. They're down 2-1 in the first period. Hellenius gets a goal. Best of 3, they're in game 3, do or die, down 2-0 second period. Hellenius gets a goal. He was doing stuff like that all year long. So it's not a shock that he stepped into that spot, even though he's barely played in the NHL, and really looked comfortable. Now, look, he's only got 10 games of experience. I'm interested to see what Montreal does when they get to study him a little bit, go back after him game after game. But he was fantastic. And then UPL was solid. I don't think there was anything spectacular that he did, but you got just about everything you wanted out of him after the first period. Those first 2 goals, certainly the power play goal, I think it's questionable, but after that he was fine. The reason they won that game last night, though, for me, is that the guys in front of them, or next to them in Hellenius' case, were better, and that was what had to happen. The defense, the number... UPL had 28 saves last night. The Sabres also blocked 27 shots. So the defense was, frankly, just as good as preventing goals as the goaltender was. And when they needed a goal in the third period, it was the finally stepped up, Zach Benson. So the things that I think made that a win for the Sabres last night really weren't the changes, even if the changes certainly by and large worked out just fine.
Yeah, and it helps to get a couple of fortunate bounces along the way as well. And last night they kind of evened out, right? There was the first period goal that was disallowed, and then of course the goal in the second period from Tage Thompson, which it was fortunate, right? They're down 2-1. He throws it in off the boards. It ricochets in, off the skate of the goalie, and that really seemed to kind of change the momentum of the game and maybe change the momentum of the series. I mean, what have you ever seen a goal quite like that before in a big spot like that?
Yeah, first of all, that's not even. Both teams got a break on a goal, but the break the Sabres got is ridiculously better. I mean, that's you see stuff like that happen all the time. You know, a guy will shoot something in, and sometimes it's a weird bounce off the board that ends up on somebody's stick in front of a goalie as opposed to going directly in. But yeah, and look, those things happen in a playoff run in every sport. And sure, we may look back on this and say, man, if the Sabres don't get that bounce off the boards in the second period, maybe we're not talking about them in a Stanley Cup final. But the other thing for me was, so they get that goal to tie it up, but then, and that was on a 4-minute power play. Right after that, Montreal gets a 4-minute power play, and the Sabres kill it. I think it was the combination of the two things into the start of the third period that really flipped the game around, and then the Sabres get their goal on the power play right after that. That was the stretch that made it work, and certainly the ridiculous bounce goal was the catalyst. But good teams have to turn really good breaks into wins, and the Sabres did that last night, because even after they go ahead 3-2, you had 15 minutes where it was pretty much a shooting gallery in the Sabres end of the ice, and they did not allow a goal. So this is, even though it was a big, lucky bounce, Buffalo did a lot more after that to make it stand up into a win.
Yeah, great point, certainly. Last one on the Sabres. You know, it's 2-2 now going back to Buffalo for Game 5 tomorrow. What kind of chances do you give this team, in this series and the rest of the way? I mean, how far can this team go, in your opinion?
In this series, they're very much in it. I thought from the beginning, you look at the history this year between the two teams, how they're built, the styles are very similar. Both teams have goalies they like but don't love. They're deep up front. I really thought this was going to be at minimum a 6-game series, and we're guaranteed that right now. Wouldn't shock me at all if they go 7. If the Sabres need to continue to connect on the power play. I mean, if they go 0 for the last 2 or 3 games, I think they're going to be done. But if you can give me a little bit on the power play, they've been better 5-on-5 so far. I think I like the goaltending situation a little bit better, although Dobich has been pretty solid lately. I think Buffalo can win this series. In terms of the big picture, you wonder with the issues the Sabres had, the idea that we're in Game 4 of Round 2 and Lindy Ruff is pulling out all the stops with changing goalies and letting Hellenius play. Like, all right, that might work against Montreal, but if it's going to be Carolina and Colorado after that, what do you got left for those two teams? So I'm a little skeptical about picking them to win a cup. But the other part of it, too, is we don't know if Carolina's good because they're good or if they're good because they got to play Ottawa and Philly in the first 2 rounds. So we'll see. And Colorado's still going to make it out of their conference before they are a problem with the Sabres. They're very much a live contender, but I think the struggles of the last few games have given me a little pause about really riding the idea that the Sabres are a team I want to put at the top of the list of winning a cup. They're not out of it, but I'm a little skeptical now.
All right, let's turn our attention to football and the Bills. We haven't talked to you since the draft. They traded back multiple times there on that first night. I guess let's start there. The strategy to trade back and try to recoup, that second-round pick that they dealt away for DJ Moore.
Loved it. Easily, for me, the best part of the draft for the Bills was making all those trade downs. The top of this draft was pretty soft. There was a lot of depth in the middle. So trade down into that, add picks, add flexibility. I mean, Brandon Beane didn't add a single player on Thursday night of the draft, and he might have had the best day. So I love that part of it.
How about the addition of Skylar Bell out of UConn? I mean, we, here in Syracuse, we certainly saw him over the course of the last couple of years. He had some big games against the Orange. Could have gone to Michigan in the portal before this past year. How do you feel about him as an addition to that wide receiver room?
I got to imagine that Syracuse Bills fans were the most excited about Skylar Bell right after what he did to you guys last year. I think of all the guys the Bills drafted, I like Bell as the most likely year-one contributor. I just think he does so many things. I don't think he's elite anywhere, but he's like an 8 out of 10 everywhere. After the catch, speed, route running, productivity at all 3 levels. So I think there's so many things that he can do and contribute, especially for a wide receiver room where becoming the third receiver means being better than Josh Palmer. And I do like Josh Palmer as a player, but it's not exactly a hard bar to clear for a rookie. So I think Bell can be someone I don't think this is a guy that's going to be an elite wide receiver one, game changer. I think you could probably chalk him up for 50 to 60 catches, 800 yards, and 5 touchdowns a year. And look, if you can pay a guy a fourth-round rookie contract to do that, as opposed to the gazillion dollars they've paid Josh Palmer and Curtis Samuel the last 3 years, well, then that's a win for the Bills. And I think if you get that out of a fourth-round pick, you're pretty satisfied.
How about just the draft overall for the Bills, start to finish? Did they accomplish what you feel like they needed to accomplish?
I think they checked most of the boxes. They got that in T.J. Parker. The Davison Igbinosun pick was mystifying at the time. I do understand the idea of wanting to add depth at corner. They really got nobody after Christian Benford and Max Hairston right now. Might fit the defense better than Hairston does. It would not stun me. This won't be a straight competition. But if we get to week one and the story is Igbinosun's the better option for this deep in the corner than Hairston, it would not be a shock. So it makes sense. I get the pick there. I like Caleb Alarms or at linebacker quite a bit. For a 3-4 defense, they don't have a lot of traditional 3-4 bendy, fast race car style edge rushers. I think Alarms or can be that kind of guy. And Jalen Kilgore in the 5th round is a great value. I'm interested to see what the Bills do with him. I think the overall, though, is it might be a little disappointing in that the thing this team never has in January is that not named Josh Allen, that really ridiculous game-changing talent next to the quarterback. And because of the way the salary cap has exploded and teams doing a better job managing their finances, you don't find those guys in free agency for the most part. You can trade for them, but it costs you an arm and a leg. I mean, the Bills had to pay a second-rounder this year to get DJ Moore, who's like a middle-of-the-road number one receiver. So the best spot to land those guys in the draft, and the Bills really didn't shoot the moon on any of the guys they drafted. I mean, I understand the Igman pick. I like Skylar Bell, but they could have gone Ted Hurst and McCoy, the defensive back the Raiders took at the top of round 4, guys with immensely bigger upside, but instead they went more high-floor guys. And look, that can work, but we see a lot of Bills teams that get to January that are Josh Allen and oodle full of B-plus players with no A guys. This draft looks like a bunch of B-plus guys with very few guys that I think have A ceiling. So, now look, the draft was that way as a whole. It wasn't like every team out by great players and the Bills skipped it, but they really didn't add anybody that you're looking at and thinking that guy could be an all-pro in 2 or 3 years.
Lastly, Thad, we saw Monday night that they released the Bills will have their home opener Thursday night, week 2 against the Lions, and we've seen the ticket prices, and it's been a hot topic on social media and whatnot. Curious to get your thoughts, covering that Western New York area. What are fans saying? How concerned are fans about the ticket prices? Do you think obviously the ticket prices are going to go up, but the fact that it's $700 is the cheapest to get in the door on the secondary market, do you think that's going to continue through this first year of the new stadium, or is that just because it's the opener and it's prime time? And I guess how concerned is the fan base about this?
Game 1 will certainly be worse than the rest of the year. I think, depending on the matchup and time and all that stuff, there will be more affordable what you're going to get for that Lions game after this. I think the fan base, especially the season ticket holders who have spent the last 18 months kind of going through the process of being marketed, the new tickets and what they want to do. Basically what happened, the short story is season ticket holders got to go through a process of see, okay, this is your new stadium. Here's what it'll look like. Here's what your view will be. Here's what it'll cost. Almost all of them said, we ain't paying that. And then they cycled back through to maybe buy a season ticket somewhere else. I think the result of that has been everybody's just kind of resigned to the idea for this year and maybe next, it's going to be exorbitant to get into that building. And everybody knows it, everybody's accepted it. If you want to pay all the money to be there, then I think you're going to feel like you got your money's worth. I've been through that stadium a couple times, and it really looks like a fun building. It's a lot more compact. I think it's going to be really loud. It's like I've never seen a football stadium that looks more like a basketball or a hockey arena than what New Highmark is going to be. It's going to be very fun and interesting, but it ain't going to be cheap. The days of you can pay $80 on game day and get into the 300 level, that's gone for a few years now in Western New York. And I think for the most part, Bills Mafia is just kind of like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's just go forward.
You know, we talked yesterday on the show, Paulie, about the ticket prices for that Bills-Lions home opener week 2 on a Thursday night, and now the cheapest ticket is like $700 to sit in the nosebleeds. And you asked me how much would I spend. I don't know about that game in particular. You brought up yesterday on the show about if I could go to a Super Bowl that the Bills were guaranteed to win, how much would I spend? And I said the most I would go is probably like $5,000 for 2 tickets, like $2,500 per ticket. If I knew they were going to win, if the seats were pretty good. I know that's a lot, but man, that would be a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, it would be fun. I've never been to a hockey game, and going to a playoff game would be a ton of fun. And I hope to someday go to a World Series game.
Yeah, I went to one Sabres regular season game a few years back. It was a lot of fun, and I can only imagine what the playoff atmosphere will be like in that city, especially for Game 5, which is tomorrow night back at the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. We also talked golf on the show today. PGA Championship teeing off tomorrow just outside of Philadelphia. We had our good friend James Colgan on from golf.com. He's a Cuse guy. We love having him on, getting his insight, and we led him off by first and foremost asking him what he thinks the biggest storyline is heading into this week.
This year in golf has been defined by a total lack of parity. So typically the sport, you've got 100 some odd players in the field every week. You've got a different winner every week, and you've got a pretty wide variety of guys who could win a tournament conceivably every week. And this year, it just feels like every tournament has been dominated by numbers 1, 2, and 3 in the world. And that's Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, and Cameron Young in order. And I think this week is kind of set up to be a continuation of that. Honestly, I look at the golf course, I look at the field, I look at what we're expecting out of the weather and the conditions, and I just don't see a world in which one of the 3 best ball strikers in the sport is not at the very least in the final pairing come Sunday afternoon. And that's just sort of an unusual thing. I mean, I know it sounds sort of redundant to say the best players are good at golf, but it really does feel like this year it's been more separated than really I can recall ever seeing.
Well, you took my next question right out of my mouth, because I was going to ask you if you were picking between the big 3 or, outside of that big 3 to win this golf tournament. It sounds like you like those 3 guys. Who of those 3, I guess, would be the favorite in your mind? Is it Scottie, even though, he's come very close this year on a number of occasions and come up just short due to a couple of slow starts? Is it Cam Young because he's so hot? Rory's obviously been a great player and continues to be. How would you kind of rank those 3 going into this week?
It's funny. I was just looking at the odds, and I saw that Scottie is like plus 385 or something to win, but Rory and Cam Young are both like plus 1,000 or worse. And I was shocked by that. I think if I were picking anyone from that group to win this week, it would probably be Cam Young. I feel like he's just one of these guys who's due to win a couple majors. He's just like too good with an iron in his hand. He's too consistent as a ball striker that if he gets into an environment of, especially the PGA Championship, where the course is generally set up kind of tamely, like this is going to be a bomber's paradise. And I feel like that sets up perfectly for Cam. So just looking at it from a value standpoint, I would probably take him. And frankly, like straight up, I might take him as well. Scottie's still the #1 player in the world. And by all accounts, like by a significant margin still, I think the Data Golf World Rankings have him like 3/4 of a shot better than the next best player in the world right now, which is pretty funny. But to your point, we haven't seen him do a lot of winning this year. And I think it's funny, like, when you get to the PGA Championship, it's only May. The golf season runs through August. And, there's plenty of time to kind of make a season from this point forward. And so if Scottie wins this week, I feel like everybody will kind of forget about the fact that he hasn't really been playing to the very tip top of his capacity to this point in the season. But I have a strong suspicion that we're actually going to wind up leaving this weekend and saying like, this is the first time that Scottie has appeared vulnerable since he kind of ascended into the world #1 spot 3 or 4 years ago now. And that is a testament to how good he has played over this stretch of time. I mean, for like the first 3 years of my career, we didn't have a consistent world #1 for more than 3 weeks at a time. And now Scottie's had just a stranglehold on it. But I think we're still in this place where he is, he's more vulnerable than he has been in a long time. And I'm surprised by that.
I want to follow up on Cam Young. You know, he came on the scene and has a lot of traits, right? He checks a lot of boxes. A lot of folks were very excited about him, and now he's starting to break out, and we're seeing what he's all about. What is the ceiling for Cam Young? A lot of people thought Jordan Spieth was going to be the next great player, and that never quite. He's had a very good career, but never quite became one of the best in the game week in and week out. Do you think Cam Young has that potential to be on that same level as Scotty and Rory here for a while moving forward?
I think we've seen guys have these heaters every so often where they just ascend into a different level of play for a certain period of time. And it definitely feels like Cam Young is on one of those heaters right now. Obviously, the line that distinguishes a player from being a consistently dominant player and just a flash in the pan is consistency. It's being able to reach this pinnacle for a longer period of time. But I would say if I were looking at Cam's game right now, I would feel pretty good about him being the guy who could kind of stick with this top group. I mean, you just watch him play, and there are just certain golfers that the ball sounds different coming off of the club and it looks different when he's swinging it. And Cam has been so good at that for his whole career. Frankly, the thing that killed him for the vast majority of kind of the early portion of his career was that he was blind as a bat around the greens. He couldn't read anything. He could hardly make a putt. And then he changed his caddy. He's got one of his childhood buddies now. And when he, added the caddy to the mix, if you watch the two of them on the green, Cam doesn't do any of the reading for any of the putts. He's kind of taking the read from his guy. He's then trying to hit to the line on the green and just make the putt sort of through that lens. And that's very different. We don't see a lot of top tier golfers who don't read their own putts, but it seems like that's sort of the case for Cam, which I think is super fascinating. But if that works for him right now, like there's no reason to suggest that it wouldn't work heading into the future. And I think the rest of his game is so well-rounded and so consistent that, yeah, I could fully see him being a guy who sticks around here in the top 3 in the world for the next 5 or 6 years.
One more question on the big three. We've been hearing a lot about Rory and his toe and this blister that he's dealing with. Do you think it's anything that impacts him at all this week, or is it just, kind of one of those pre-tournament storylines that people are talking about?
Look, I just got to say, as someone who defends pro golfers, defends pro golf as a sport, I would like to consider myself someone who lifts up the sport. We're not helping ourselves by having players, threatening their tournament availability for a freaking blister. I mean, we need our guys to kind of stand up here and play with a little bit more gumption. I think he'll be all right. We have seen this affect players in the past. I mean, I remember John Rahm missed the U.S. Open 2 years ago at Pinehurst with a very similar thing. He had a blister that got infected and then became this whole deal. And it affected him for like weeks after that, which is kind of crazy to think about. I would like to think that Rory won't let the chance to win 2 straight majors, be interrupted by the fact that his toe has a blister on it. But we've certainly seen it affect players in the past. And I think, when you think about the golf swing, there's just so much sort of minutia that goes into the experience of trying to score lower than your counterparts. And if kind of any piece in the chain is broken up, like I could see how that would affect your performance. But yeah, I think he'll play. And frankly, I'm not expecting it to be a significant issue for him.
Steve, would you do the show with a blister?
Of course. Yeah. Sure? Anything for you, Paul.
You sure?
Anything for you.
I'm questioning that. All right. My sleeper pick, I do huge research on this. I usually go to one website. Sepp Straka. What do you think?
Sure, I could see it. I think it's basically the archetype you're looking for in a winner this week is it's a long golf course that has no trees. So the whole plan is just if you can hit the ball further than everyone else, even if you're in the rough, it doesn't really matter. It seems like they're going to get some rain. There's not going to be too much wind. So it's really just going to turn into how far can you hit your driver, and then can you hit your wedges closer to the flag than anyone else? And that sort of makes it it's slightly less compelling golf tournament. And we've heard that from a few different players at the start of this week. I think they're all going to be a little bit bored just bombing driver everywhere. But I think if you're looking for the kind of player who would play well in that condition, you want someone who's sort of, just big and burly with the driver, can sort of just, execute at the long game to kind of the top of his ability. And so I think when you're looking at guys who fit in that category, sure, I could see Sepp Straka winning it.
Yeah, plus 8,000, Steve.
Go for it. Do
Not
it.
bad.
Do it. You talk a good game. Do it.
Yeah, no.
No. Okay. Speaking of guys who hit the ball a long way and just figure it out after that, Bryson DeChambeau. I guess the two-part question. Do you think Liv survives the rest of this year? And if so, if and when, I guess, it seems like it's just a matter of when. Whenever it kind of comes to an end, what happens with Bryson DeChambeau? What do you think is going to happen with him?
I think this is actually the biggest story in the sport right now, like just bar none. I think Bryson remains the only player on Liv that has real commercial interest following him no matter where he goes. And I think that that's really valuable to the PGA Tour or to any other place that he might want to play golf. He's also on an expiring contract right now, so he could theoretically walk even if Liv doesn't fold after this season. I would say my sort of read of the situation based on people that I've spoken to, is I expect the league will survive through the end of the year. And the reason why is because they're funded through the end of the year. Then the Saudis have promised them a certain amount of money to survive through the season. That money is not going to go away. The Saudis retain a controlling stake in Liv. So they even if they're done spending and burning money on this, they're not looking for the league to just outright fold immediately. I think their ideal situation would be another owner steps in and takes control of this stuff, and hopefully can kind of like resuscitate the league and bring it back to some level of prominence. But I think if you're a golf fan and you're just looking at this from your normal standpoint of how you view the world, like the Liv PGA Tour drama that's dominated the last 5 years in pro golf ended the day that the Saudis announced that they were pulling out of the sport. Like, it's just that simple. Liv is not in a place where they can financially afford to add talent where they are currently. And the guys that they do have are actively looking for a way out. And so it's any drama that existed around who's going to win this, is Liv going to be able to hang on? Like, all of that is over now. There's not enough money to support Liv heading forward. And so the PGA Tour is in a massive position of advantage. As it relates to Bryson, I think, as I said before, he's the only guy with any commercial interest following him. So yeah, I think the tour would probably try to get him back, but I'm not sure that Bryson actually wants to do that. I mean, he has said that he is thinking about going to YouTube full time. And in speaking to him over the years, that this is not the first time that he suggested that this was a possibility for him. So like, I don't think it's that unreasonable. Obviously, it would be kind of silly to leave tournament golf except for the majors, but like, I think that's fully on the table right now. So it's a really fascinating time. I think when I look at Liv, I think their best hope is to become like the third biggest tour in the world next year. And that's kind of a tough place to be in. And I think when you just recognize that reality, it's very hard to see Bryson sticking around in the long run.
That's James Colgan, Cuse grad, joining us here on the show from golf.com to break it all down. I'm a Scotty Scheffler guy. He's been so close this year. I think he wins it this week.
Sepp Straka is my underdog pick, yeah.
Okay. Any reason for that?
Don't sleep on Sepp.
Are you gonna throw $10 on it?
No. But don't sleep on him.
Okay. All right. Very good.
It's National Frog Jumping Day. I don't know what it is, but that sounds fun. National Apple Pie Day.
Oh, love a good apple pie.
National Receptionist Day.
Okay.
National Third Shift Workers Day, Steve. I don't know if you ever worked a third shift. I used to do overnights. Not fun. Oh, you did
in radio. I did. Yeah, my first radio job, I guess you could call it, was basically an intern at Z89. I worked midnight to 6 a.m.
National Crouton Day. This is a big day for you.
It's a big day for me.
Yeah, you got to go have a crouton pie. National Fruit Cocktail. You got to love that, too. You probably like a good fruit cocktail. And Children of Fallen Patriots Day.
Okay. Man,
brought the room down on the end.
Yeah, this is a big day. May 13th.
You can eat all three of the things.
Yes.
On May 13th.
That doesn't happen very often. Croutons, apple pie, and fruit cup. Okay. Let's get crazy today. Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. For Paulie, I'm Steve. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, everybody.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.